All right. Welcome to the Screaming Chewy Show. This is Chewy. Got a special guest here, man. Andrew Robinson. And why don't you
AKA
tell us
President
about
Zen 1.
Zen One? Yes. And you're also a fellow podcaster. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Okay, so I try to make it more of a topical, so maybe a couple different articles that are related. Sometimes I'll talk about or one theme for an episode, but sometimes I'll just run through headlines and just like find something to rant about because so let me just give a little background. So I've been doing this podcast for 5 years, half a decade, as we're about to hit 2020.
Wow.
Right?
Man.
So it's been a while. It began first way before that even. I used to be like, I consider myself an independent musician. It was never like on a big scale. I wasn't like, I was just an indie rapper, just kind of, I've got a lot of music on reverbnation.com/President Zen 1. And then I've got a couple EPs though of official stuff on Spotify. So that's where I'm just,
what was your rapper name, bro?
It was President Zen 1. That name evolved from, so we're talking about many years back. I don't want to date myself too much, but yeah, for a long time though, I used to rap. It was a fun hobby. I used to do it and make a lot of songs. And then I went by the name of Chosen One. And after a while, I wanted to try to make the music have more message than just the typical brag rap. The typical,
so from
just
Chosen
like
One, you went to Zen One. Is that how that evolved?
Yeah.
I see.
And during that time, there was a lot of
clever.
Do you remember like Diplomats, Cameron, Jules Santana, Jim Jones, Purple Haze, the Purple Mixtape? Okay. So like their crew back then, like hip hop was going through a phase back then where everybody's like, I'm the CEO of Rockefeller Records. I'm the president of Aftermath Records. So I kind of borrowed that kind of template. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with president because number one, I wanted to start to make the music a little more political or message, a little bit more of a positive message. So I was like, let me say, I used to call myself CEO and whatnot, but I was like, president. I like the ring to that. So, and then I just shortened it up to Zen instead of Chosen One. Just chopped up the ZEN and boom. So sorry if I'm going too long, but I was thinking about, okay. So I did the music for a while and then I was kind of interested in I was doing it for a while. I wanted to evolve or do something more. So I was getting,
that calling.
Yeah. So I wanted to still do something somewhat related to giving out a message. So in college, in 2010, I started to do a newsletter. I did a newsletter. And it started out as the Armageddon Herald because my record company that I was president of was called Armageddon Records, right? So
I like president. Armageddon.
Yes. So what I did was I used that kind of, that brand. And I was like, okay, it started out as the Armageddon Herald. And then a couple issues of a newsletter. Right. And then and I changed the name to the Armageddon Telegraph. And then after that, I found a better name that I liked, Black Helicopter News. So then that's where I got the name for the podcast, was based on a newsletter. And then I said,
I like that name better, the helicopter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's even just, that's cool. Like black is a cool word. Helicopter is a cool word. And, stick news in front of anything and it sounds official.
It sounds like you're actually on a helicopter hanging out with a camera right there.
Yeah. I'm here above the city getting the report. So after a while of doing maybe like 12 or something issues of the newsletter, I'm like, I discovered podcasts and, fell in love with a few. Like Kevin Smith's podcast was one of the first podcasts I heard. And then Alex Jones, I got introduced to him. And I kind of liked how he was trying. You heard of him?
Oh, yeah. He's fucking funny, too, how he flips out. We got you. We're going to go get him.
Hey, the Screaming Chewy. You could.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, I know how to edit audio from making my own music. So I was like, I can do this. And then I'd like to think I have some sort of personality or, and with my job in real life, I'm not going to get into that right at all, probably, but maybe off on the phone. No big deal, but just want to keep them separated.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah,
the
Offspring.
Too, keep it separated. Yeah. You know that song?
Nice. Gotta keep them separated.
Yes.
Wasn't that fucking Kid Rock that said that?
No, but we
fucking sounds like him, bro.
It was Offspring. The Offspring. And all right, where was I? So the podcast. So I started listening to a few and got inspired. So I was like, I like Kevin Smith because he can talk, and I kind of do not public speaking, but in a sense, public speaking my job. So I got to be able to put together sentences coherently.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I was like, I think, and I got a little quirky personality. I was like, maybe this can translate to a podcast. So that's when I began to say, you know what, I'm going to podcast. And I started out trying to get guests on back to back. In my first 6 episodes or more, I had a guest every episode. I'm giving, and then I hit a wall. I was like, okay, I can't get a guest on every week. And friends that I know, I don't know if you've ever had this problem, people will be like, oh, I don't want to be on your podcast. Why? I don't know. I don't have anything to say. And I'm like, you have a right to say, speak your mind, give your thoughts on things. That's what talk radio is anyway, in podcasts.
Just have a casual conversation, you always do with them.
So, right, like you always do, but then it gets the pressure of recording. And then editing.
They do get nervous sometimes, and oh shit, people are listening to this. They're gonna hear me.
Yeah, and it's not that big of a deal. There's stuff put up on the internet every day, right? So, but
it could be worse. There's some embarrassing shit that happens to people.
Yes.
And it's out there forever now.
Yeah. So that's why, and my podcast goes between sometimes me going off on that kind of Alex Jones inspired rant occasionally. And sometimes
I like it.
And sometimes I try to be just not out there. You know what I mean? Sometimes I just try to balance it between sometimes I'll be outrageous. Sometimes I'll just be more calm and mainstream and talk about not so controversial stuff. But
I feel you, man. That's how I am too. Whatever you feel like talking about, it could be just stupid ass shit, something funny, or some crazy shit people don't know about.
Yeah, so that's where I am with it. So I couldn't find the guests for the podcast, and after a while, I was like, all right, maybe I should quit after 7 episodes. I met up with my friend that was on episode 7 or 8. He told me he was starting his podcast. And he, nice. And he suggested back then, he was like, hey, why don't you just do a solo podcast? And I was thinking, people do solo podcasts. Alex Jones is kind of like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. And then I went from having guests every week to guests once a blue moon. But I definitely, I'm so used to doing solo podcasts. That's the thing. But I always wanted to get a co-host. I wanted to grow the podcast to where I am being able to get guests.
Mm-hmm. So it makes it easier.
Yeah. Like when I put on the message board of one of the podcast communities where I met you at. And that was cool that you reached out to me, man, because I was in a spot where I was like, do I want to keep going because I'm putting all this effort into it and I'm not seeing hundreds of plays like I want to see. I want to see a massive reach going on.
Mm-hmm. And we all been there, man. You kind of question yourself, should I just fucking stop it now? What's the point of going? I'm not going nowhere, but fucking do this year. It's what you like to do. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And it's kind of, and it's kind of like a skill to be able to talk and be able to talk with people and to people. Mm-hmm. So it can increase your just conversation skills, if anything. But I don't know where I was going. I guess, did I answer the question?
Yeah, you did, man. You're talking about how you evolved into getting into the podcast now and how you went from guest to solo. And dude, I notice when I do solo episodes, I get really fucking dark sometimes. I'm like, fuck, I need more guests. I need more humor and shit.
Yeah. Hopefully my hat isn't looking too crazy in here.
Looks badass. You look like you're a hunter, bro.
I am hunting for the New World Order, man.
There you go.
And after that, I'm going bow hunting with Joe Rogan for elk. I wish.
The fucking elk, they're gay. The government made them gay because they're having sex with children.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you why. I wanted to ask you why did he call you Screaming Chewy? But I guess I get it now.
Yeah, well, so my name is Jesus, but everybody calls me Chewy.
What is Chewy? I always was curious about that name in general.
It's just like a Mexican nickname for Jesus. Like Frank or Frankie would be Pancho, or just I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
It's weird.
It's like a nickname though for that. All right.
Cool, and then man. my email is screamingchewy@gmail.com, and I didn't know what to call my podcast, and my homie's like, yo, why don't you just call it Screaming Chewy Show? I'm like, boom, that's it.
Yeah, man.
So it's stuck. And it's funny you say Alex Jones, because there's this other podcast I listen to, the regular guy show, fucking hilarious motherfuckers.
Might have to check that out, regular guy show.
Yeah, and it's funny because since you talk about Alex Jones, they were talking about him, and they were talking about frogs, and one of them made a perfect Alex Jones impersonation. He was like, the frogs, the government made them gay with the fucking pizza joints dumping in the water. Like,
he's somebody that turned his podcast into something really huge, but with that success, it came a lot of problems too. Like, Biggie says, more money, more problems.
Right. And then of course they want to censor you.
Yeah. And sometimes I think that if I was a big enough podcast that I would probably be censored by the cancel culture. But I'm really trying to learn from other people's mistakes, not, and I try to be funny with it. And, I joke around. So sometimes I'm just goofing around and embellishing and exaggerating my opinions. But, yeah, I'm trying to be mindful of that because I do want to grow and I don't want to alienate the listeners. But sometimes when you give an opinion, you can and turn people off. So I'm always struggling with that. Because you
can't make everybody happy. There's always going to be somebody that's not happy about no matter what you do.
True. Yeah, I just really want to grow this. I kind of always still kind of want to be that operation where it's like going up against the enemy, which is New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, all of the fake news media. It's just it's all bullshit. Yeah. And am I allowed to curse?
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Okay.
Fucking cuss away, man.
Yeah, the last episode I did, I was dropping a lot of F-bombs, but it wasn't about politics. It was about paranormal. I switched back to
I love that shit too.
Yeah, man, we were talking about Men in Black on the last episode. Real 2 cases with them, supposedly. Yeah.
And, there's been cases that go way back with the Men in Black. And it's always the same description. They always wear the same suits. They're fucking bald. They almost look alike.
I'm a little bald under here. I got some short hair. I could be the Men in Black, but no. I really...
You're double agent.
I'm masquerading as the controversial podcast host. But, yeah, I was saying how, if I saw one of those Men in Black, because at one of the cases, they said this guy was investigating UFOlogy. The last episode, 151, and he destroyed all his evidence. He just stopped doing it because he was getting threatened by Men in Black. And this is like a random researcher. The name won't mean anything to anyone unless you're really hardcore in it. I don't even remember it, but you can check my podcast if it really bothers you to know who this is. But
I have to know, bro. I'm gonna check it out.
But it's just a UFOologist who quit, and he was telling people not to do it because he was getting threatened from them. And he said that he came home one day and he saw a man by his first of all, he's being followed by cars, getting harassing phone calls. Then he saw a man by his garage, and the man, his face was glowing orange.
The fuck?
And not orange like Trump. Orange.
You didn't have a fake tan?
No, naranja.
Oh man, that's pretty fucking orange.
And then it said his face kind of like morphed into an old man's face.
The fuck?
And I was like, yeah, and I'm like, if I saw that, man, I was like, homeboy's coming through with that demonic shit. I was like, man, that's why we need guns, so we can shoot that motherfucker in the head. It's a demon, though, right? It's not a real man. So it's not violence against a real person. But
are they using like technology to do that, or are they using fucking aliens? Do they hire fucking aliens?
Here's my theory. Well, yeah. So they said that. Let me just give you the second story of that episode. So to finish up that one, he said that somehow there's always like black arts or black magic or something crazy affiliated with it. So he was saying like it could be. So I don't know. That's why I'm assuming that guy was a Men in Black, was kind of a demonic origin. Whether that's true or not, like I'm not trying to go too far off the deep end and just say, yeah, it's definitely real.
Because the Illuminati, they're devil worshippers. So
yes, like that's how.
Right there.
That's how I start to. That's where like all the theory kind of starts to open up. It's like, well, then if God's not real, then the devil's not real, and if the devil's not real, then why are the rich elite worshiping the devil? Like, so then therefore, like, all this fantastic shit has to be some grain of truth to it. So
for sure.
The other story was a lady and her husband, and these stories are both going back like 50 years, well documented. So another one was a lady and her husband somewhere in England. They one night they saw a light in the sky, and they followed it for a minute and saw it. Went home. She talked about it to people, and all of a sudden they were saying that one day she said a short man came to her house, a grinning man. He looked bald and old. Well, actually he looked like a short, old, smiling, grinning man with like Joker lips on it. Instead of like makeup. He was crazy looking. It was real freaky. I was getting goosebumps doing the show, and I was waiting for like to see like a Men in Black outside, but I didn't. But I was shook. Your house. I went downstairs to go get some food, and it was dark, and I have like windows with like no curtains in some parts of the house, so I was like scared. Like I was like, what if I see that? But anyway, yeah, all she did. She said a man was punching her door, and she opened it, and he was like threatening looking and like weird, like a creep, a weirdo, a real weirdo. And he was like telling her, cease your studies or something, like stop. He was saying something about basically stop talking about the lights you saw in the sky. Right?
What?
And she did. And what she said, she went up to her bed after, like, and she said, and she was like, okay. And then he stood there, stared at her for a minute, like he was going to attack her, and then walked away. And then she said she went, that's crazy, right? That's like, I'd be spooked out. I'm seeing some crazy, like, I was like, wow, if you answer your door and you see this little weirdo threatening you, like he could push his way in type thing, right?
That's when you invite him in and fucking blast him.
Exactly. That's why you need the gun. Because, yeah, you're on my property and you're trying to come at me like crooked, bro. But anyway, she went up to her room and took a 3-hour nap. Her husband wasn't there. And then she said she woke up, the house smelled like rubber. I was like, no. And they said it took forever to get the smell out. Like, I would have, like, as soon as he left, I would have been creeping at the window, peeking out, making sure he left. But
for real, see where he goes.
And she's like, she had I don't know. It was just like real weird. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, what's up with that? Why do they not want? And so these are two different stories, not related technically, but similar. And they're like saying they don't want you to study. So I'm like, well, if they are demonic or whatever, well, first of all, if you tell someone not to do something, they're going to want to do it. That's basic psychology.
Oh yeah.
Don't do that. They got to do that. Yeah. Don't eat the apple off the tree, Eve. She eats the apple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just natural. So I'm like, well, why would they be asking you to not do something? And those people, those demons, if they're real, they would want more people to fall in a trap. So I think maybe like now, like I was thinking maybe they're telling you not to do it to lure more people in.
So
and they said, and what?
Oh, my bad. They're just saying so you can do it. They'll probably fucking steal your research if you do.
Yeah, I like to pretend. I'm always talking shit. I'm talking out my ass a lot. So I'm like, yeah, I got tons of UFO research. Come get it, bro. Come get it. Come get it, boy.
See an old man, old little Joker, blast that smile off his face.
Hell yeah. Yo, I will beat. Yeah. Anyway, so I was being a tough guy. I was being a tough guy.
You could probably like fucking do some wrestling moves on him, bro. Like
that's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I was saying. I was like, I'm gonna use all my knowledge of what being a wrestling fan, and I will DDT that motherfucker in the cement.
Bro, you can tag me in. We'll be like the Dudley brothers, do that special move together.
Yo, I love the Dudley boys. Yeah, the Dudley Death Drop. Man.
Yeah.
So going back to that, why they would not? You asked me, who do I think it would be? The government or whatever. So I would think, like, how do they know? Like, well, we are being surveilled 24/7 with our like. Everything in our houses are smart devices, but back then they didn't have that back then. So I kind of feel like the men in black are actual aliens just trying to cover up their tracks. Now, whether or not aliens have made a deal with the governments of the earth to kidnap, which I've heard that theory. I'm not saying it's for sure, but it's out there. It could be a possibility.
For sure.
There's definitely something to research. There's definitely something to research. They kind of tracked down, I think it was Nixon or one of the presidents, Eisenhower, somebody. I have a book I was looking at the other day, and like they kind of put him in a spot where he could have visited in Roswell, or I don't know. I'm not ready to discuss all that, but there's things out there.
That's a whole other story.
That's something. Yeah. But there could be some sort of deal, pact made with them, maybe. So maybe it's them, with the government's backing. Like, yeah, okay, you can go threaten this person, and that way they don't investigate. It's a win for us. That way you can still like do whatever you're doing with these people, fucking with people, experimenting. So it could be like a win-win for them.
Anal probing.
Yeah, man, can't forget about that. That's,
but you know what? Humans are fucking weird, bro. And like, imagine how many people like the anal probing. Like the aliens get a giant fucking twisting fucking turbo dildo, and people are like, oh yeah. And
why don't they go target the people that like that? Right? Maybe they do. Maybe they do, and then people pretend that they're not that person. They're like, they did that to me. That's so horrible. And they're like, secretly, like, I love it.
They could like put an ad on Craigslist and get volunteers. You know what I mean?
Yes. I wonder how aliens have the technology if they tapped into our stuff, created an anonymous account. I don't know. It's all fun to talk about. I mean, I'm not going. I don't want your listeners to be like, saying that I'm like totally off the deep end. I'm just open-minded to these things.
They probably think that about me, bro. It's all good. Okay. That's why they're listening right now.
I like the guest you had where he was talking about his past lives. He was sounding kind of crazy. But he was sounding like he was making good points. So I liked what he was saying. So he sounded crazy, but he was putting stuff together, and he was saying it in like a non-crazy way. So
yeah, he was really good.
It was interesting.
I was like, I thought it was kind of weird, about like remembering your past lives. But then, how he brought it up, I'm like, damn, this motherfucker knows his shit, yo. Like,
Yeah, it was a good one though. So I got to check out some more of your episodes. It's I see how you'll like spotlight someone and then, give them a nice little interview.
Yeah, for sure, bro. Like, I'm a guest on, and plug your show. I'll put your links in the description, the episode description. Like,
yeah, man.
love networking with other podcasters, bro. Especially people that are into shit that I'm into. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, like minds need to connect. And with are you on Anchor?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Me too. I switched over, within the last year or so, free hosting. But I love the recording interface and how you can leave comments.
Yeah, and send each other messages.
Yeah, so I might do that. I might leave some comments for you, man. And
sure.
You could do the same for me. I'd like to have you on the podcast as a guest officially, but you can leave messages too and questions.
Oh, I'd love to be a guest, dude. Nice. But same to you. Whenever you want to be a guest, man, you're always welcome. Leave messages.
Okay, yeah. Let's make it a regular thing.
Guy you were talking about is Kenneth Brady, Positive Minds Only podcast. The guy that
look him up.
Is reincarnated.
I gotta look him up. Yeah.
Very
and I looked up Drew. World Order. I heard some of that podcast.
He's really good too. Yeah.
Yeah, he sounded good. Yeah. So that was interesting. I got a little taste of your show. So I was like seeing how your format was. And I was like, I want to get on people's podcasts, and I'm glad to link with people because the podcasters I have people that I know that I podcast with, and they kind of fall off after a while.
Oh.
My friend who had I had a friend who had a podcast who started about the same time as me, kind of put his on a couple year hiatus. He's starting a new one, like a one that's just based on like a real selective topic, like addiction or something, like some sort of area like that. So it's not going to be like a podcast that may catch on with everyone right away. You know what I mean? I might have to build a following. Mm-hmm. So he's
niche.
Yeah, exactly. And I had another friend who was a poet. I had the musician. He kind of canceled his podcast. The poet I knew, he canceled his.
Damn,
I know.
Man.
Yeah. A lot of people I know, they're just dropping like flies, man. The podcast, I guess it's keeping up with it, and it's starting to get to me. It was like, why would I continue? But I love it. It's a part of me,
man. 5 years, bro. Fuck. And I like how you do your content, how you edit your audio, how you put together that was like a New World Order type of thing.
Okay, you want to know the story about that?
Yeah.
All right. Now the